All right, everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Trailhead. We got an incredible guest this week. His name is Tayson Whittaker, a good friend of mine, and the owner of Outdoor Vitals. Tayson, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Glad to be on.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to be on and tell us a little bit more about Outdoor Vitals. If you could just go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about what Outdoor Vitals is. I know a ton about Outdoor Vitals, but what Outdoor Vitals kind of does, and maybe a little bit of background on how you guys started.
Yeah, we're a performance-first ultralight gear company, so we really have a whole wide range of products. We have a massive amount of apparel now that we do, and just trying to keep everything light and performance-focused. But started with sleeping bags, still do a lot of top quilts, tents, backpacks, to kind of try to cover all of the bases for our demographic, our avatar, our customer. But yeah, started originally with just a down sleeping bag and me wanting to sell direct and get more people into high quality gear, so they could have a better experience outdoors.
Yeah. Okay. And so how long have you been in business for?
It will be 12 years in like May.
Almost a teenager.
Almost a teenager. Yeah. Pretty wild. Pretty
Then you can
wild for
start
sure.
rebelling.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see how the team likes that.
So what exactly, so I guess people would, for me personally, I know kind of exactly how you kind of started with all that stuff, but I love to kind of hear the story of kind of ups and downs throughout the history of Outdoor Vitals, maybe some stories that you can tell, and we can kind of bounce from there on what it is exactly took you to where you are now from that one. Because I know the whole sleeping bag thing to buying that and then doing another 10, and then
hmm
selling those and then growing. But maybe were the some growing pains and stuff like that as you started?
Yeah, so just like you said, I wanted to get into this industry. I wanted to be working in something that I was passionate about, and so this
Yeah.
is kind of where I landed. And there's a lot of ups and downs in this. I think it's very easy to be like, oh, it's a 10-year overnight success, but there's
Yeah.
10 years prior of trying and doing different things. Thankfully, I would say we didn't have a lot of failures, but we had a lot of pivot points. Because when I started the business, just to be frank, I was 23 years old. I had no money to my name. I had an idea, I had a lot of drive and passion, but I had no experience. I had no
Yeah.
prior experience in other businesses. And so understanding like what a brand is and some of those things, that really wasn't my focus. My focus when I got started was to just
Oops.
get to sales, get to cash, and try to have something even remotely viable. And then from there, make those adjustments to build what I really hoped I could build in the long run. And so that's really the story of Outer Vitals. So yeah, just like you mentioned, I was actually buying samples from factories, and then I started to modify those samples to make them
Yeah.
better and better. And went from buying 3 units to 5 units to 10 units to 50 units and so on and so forth, which is crazy now that was even possible, because to work with the factories that we work with today,
Yeah.
you're talking hundreds, mostly thousands of units in minimum order amounts to be able to work with these factories. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of pivot points, and we went through, we progressively up leveled manufacturing and things. But there was also the fact that I am very anti outside funding. I don't like
Yeah.
venture capital funding. I don't like what that does to the brand itself, its values, and the decisions that it starts being made when you bring in that outside funding and other ownership.
Yeah.
And so we've continued to self-fund and self-grow this. And so we've used things like Kickstarter to grow. And so in 2018, so we started in 2014, but by 2018, we had enough customers asking us to make a puffy jacket. And so I started to do some design work on that, came across an insulation that was an imitation down, and it was better than anything I was seeing from Primaloft or anyone else. And it was really
Mm.
a machine company, and the machine company built a machine to spin this off, and it was so good that they decided to start selling the insulation instead of selling the machines. And so I got in kind of at the ground floor on that, produced a jacket, and that jacket pre-sold on Kickstarter and Indiegogo $1 million worth of pre-orders. And then
Wow.
that kickstarted our apparel, but it also kickstarted a lot of other things in the business. It was after that point that I went and got a designer, a full-time designer that's still with us today. Because to that point, I was designing off of experience, Photoshop,
Yeah.
like no design background, just me having ideas and
Yeah.
working with the factory on iterations. We also took that specific campaign, and I went and I started approaching, the highest end manufacturers I could find, which are still our manufacturers today. They're absolutely incredible. And because they could see kind of this history of success, they were now willing to start working with us. And so that really like kickstarted the next phase of OV. And, so then we started working on that really through 2019 and 20. And it felt like around 2020 and later is what we call, what we refer to internally as like OV 2.0, Outdoor Vitals
Yeah.
2.0, where all of the products up leveled, all the designs were refreshed. And we were really working into what I had hoped we could have done, 8 years or so earlier.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a high level
Yeah.
touch point on the backstory of OV. And I think
Yeah.
that's going to happen. Like I was just rereading a book about Patagonia, and it's so interesting to see what they were like the first 10 years, the next 10 years, and then beyond. And the brand that everyone knows today about Patagonia was like nothing like the first, like, I would say like 15 plus years. So for me, it's all about building something great in the long run and in the long term, and continuing to just stay in business, make great choices, and build something. And so it is a lot of fun to be where we're at today, because when I look back in the beginning, it was just totally different.
No, we look back at the same thing. I just talked to a previous, because we do wedding photography and family portraits and stuff. And I look back, families asking us to do their son's senior portraits from him leaving college. And I was like, I did their family pictures 14 years ago, 15 years ago. And I was like, man, I can't believe they're coming back to hire me, because the pictures back then sucked so bad. But I was like, how are they coming back? I guess they must like what they see now. So
Totally. That's hilarious.
I love people that try to grow a business slowly than to have that instant success. I'm sure when you were 23, you were like, you wouldn't mind the instant success, but then you have all kind of headaches that you don't know about. A lot of people I've talked to, their company grows slowly, and they tell me all the headaches at the beginning, but they learn from those, because as much as you can learn from other people's mistakes, you still have to make your own mistakes. So
no, totally. So like 2015, 16, we were just constantly stocking out a product. I could not keep inventory in stock, because it just takes a lot of money to stock inventory in this kind of a business. It eats cash. It eats so much cash to grow. And you probably could not have convinced me that if you handed me $1 million in a loan or something like that, that I couldn't have just quadrupled the size of my business and like just done amazing things. But then fast forward to like 2017, 18, I like actively was saying, like, if someone had done that, I would have absolutely torched this business and like made big issues with ordering inventory. We would have been stuck with hundreds of thousands of dollars of the wrong inventory, stuff like that. And it was really fun. On year 10 of the business, I really tried to take a year of like reflection and think a lot about, okay, what have we learned? And it was kind of one of those moments where I'm like, man, we have learned. Like we went from like this 23-year-old kid who thought he knew a lot of things, read a lot of books. Like I just drowned myself in podcasts, and I was that kid, I was that 13, 14-year-old that was reading business books like outside of school. I just loved like learning and trying to figure out how I could build something that I would enjoy as a career. And anyways, it felt like around the 10-year mark, I was doing a lot of reflection. It's like, okay, I feel so much more like we took all that knowledge that I might have had as a young kid, and I've been able to apply it and turn it a little bit more. And I'm not saying I'm wise, but a little bit more into the wisdom, which feels more like that application, the school of hard knocks. And it was fun to look back on that at the 10-year point for sure.
That's cool. Well, let's say there's someone who's, trying to start a business right now, and you could look back at the 23-year-old you. What would you say to that 23-year-old that's trying to start their business, or, someone who's even 40 who's trying to start a business or create a nest egg for somebody? Would you tell them to go for it, or would you be like, slow down? What would be some advice for them?
Yeah. My advice really hasn't changed. I read a book a long time ago called The Lean Startup, and I would still advise people to look at that book. And that book really talks about spending the time to validate the idea before you start sinking money into it. I really hate when I go to like trade shows and I walk around and I find like this brand new brand that came out of nowhere. And as I talk to the owner of it, they're like, yeah, I mortgaged the house and started this brand, I just retired and I have all this money and I'm just dumping it all in this new business. And you're like, Like, that's just the worst way I think you can do it, because you don't have that opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people believe full-heartedly that it takes money to make money.
Yeah.
And I fundamentally disagree with that. I think that it helps and it accelerates growth, but also you can be accelerating in the wrong direction. But I think if you apply yourself and do the hard things, um, then you can grow it without money, and you can grow one
Yeah.
step at a time. So an example of that would be like, if you have got a great idea, instead of sinking, I don't know, $10,000 into trying to get something produced before you ever sell it, take the idea, go out on the street and try to sell it to people, take a dollar from them, whatever, pre-order it, take a pre-sale
Yeah.
and validate the idea, and then turn around, give them the dollar back and say, "Hey, thank you. I actually have nothing to sell you right now. This is just an idea, but you gave
Yeah.
me the money and you validated it." Don't ask your friends and family. Friends and family will tell you nothing but praises.
Yeah.
They'll tell you it's a great idea. You can totally do it. They're there to be your cheerleaders. They are not there to give you the reality of the world and the market and the
Yeah.
economy. So, um, I think my advice would be, yeah, you need to validate early, which is not fun, right? People don't want to do that because it's not fun to go out and
Yeah.
like door to do, knock on someone's door and be like, "What do you think of this idea? Like, would you give me money for this idea?" Um, but it is critical, because the amount of people that I see waste money, lose money. I need to find the patent on this. Maybe with Chat GPT, I can figure this out now. But I read some stats a long time ago about the number of patents that get created that
Yeah.
never see like a single production unit. And it's like incredibly high. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, so I won't quote it, but it's like way more patents get created than actually units get sold of anything.
Really.
And I think that that is like stereotypical of people wanting to start businesses. People want to
Yeah.
start businesses because they have this grandiose idea, but they don't realize that it's a major grind. You've got to keep doing it. Those one-off unicorns, even the unicorns that sound like unicorns of like, oh, they went from zero to this big
Yeah.
brand in no time. Like, that is not the truth. All of them behind the scenes, either they had started multiple businesses or there
Yeah.
was a 5-year grind, or like Patagonia, like $1 billion company today. Well, like 10 years into the business, they were still doing like $1 million in sales. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's just getting real with it, I think, is really, really important, and realizing it is a ton of work. You've got to really give it everything you've got. Now, with the internet, the thing that I would add to that I've seen over time is everything is more competitive now than it's ever been.
Mhm.
And so, and when you think about how the internet works, you get highly, highly rewarded for being, ranking, 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
or ranking, let's just say on the first page. But by the time you get to like the second page of anything, you're fighting over like single digit percentages of sales.
Yeah.
Whereas like the very top spot might get like half of the sales, and then the next two get the next 30%, and it
Yeah.
drops off. And so anymore, the level of competition is so high and so fierce that you cannot afford to not go 100% in and
Yeah.
give it everything you have at every level of the business and expect to have success. People
Yeah.
that kind of dabble, I've seen so many people dabble and get
Yeah.
nowhere. And so it's like, if you're thinking about dabbling, like, I would tell you to just dabble in real investments, real estate, stocks, if
Yeah.
you want to dabble, you know what I mean?
I've talked to somebody before. I've I've talked to a few companies both on here and just, trade shows and stuff like that. And I've seen them over the years. And part of me, just knowing a marketing portion of it, I look at it and I go, man, they could do so much more, but they can't go 100% into it. And they're complaining about everything, but yet it's not necessarily those complaints. It's like a lot of times it ends up being the marketing side of it. They have a great product and then they don't put the time, the effort, or the money into advertising a product that now is an actually good product or a meal or whatever. And my wife and I keep debating every once in a while, should we offer to buy their company? Because we know we could take it from like here to like here within like a month just based on the marketing portion of it.
But that's the thing though, is it's never just one-sided, right?
Yeah.
I think when you come in, a lot of people feel like they're the hammer, and everything they see is the nail, or however you want to say that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think what has made, like, and I don't want to say like that met success. I'm still chasing goals in my
Yeah.
life, but like, I think what has made me more successful is I studied finance in school. Always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't have
Yeah.
an entrepreneurship program in college. So I took finance, and then I tried to start businesses in college, and
Mhm.
I was looking at that, and I was working at startup businesses to learn from them. But I also went and sold door to door and studied sales all through
Mhm.
college. In fact, I graduated high school, flew to Virginia, and did door to door sales as an 18-year-old.
Hmm.
Worst thing you could do, but absolutely school of hard knocks, right? Like I
Yeah.
learned so much from that. Um, so I self-taught a lot of marketing stuff, and then
Yeah.
design, like I self-taught a lot of design, but like studying those things and being able to do all of those things, I think is really important for me to grow into, quote unquote, like that CEO position and manage the
Yeah.
company. And I think that is a huge fall off for a lot of people, is they think that the idea is the business, and it's like that's just a fraction
Yeah.
of what has to happen. And so being well-rounded, being willing to learn some of these other things so that you can potentially manage it, especially if you're
Yeah.
going to stay a manager. Otherwise, you've got to afford a CEO to step
Yeah.
in and do all that while you stay in your lane of expertise.
Yeah.
Um, but it's totally true. Like, you can easily pick out the problems in other companies. But what I think a lot of times, what I would say for people that kind of do that, they like look at brands and they're like, oh man, this could be amazing. But is like, you've got to see the whole picture. Like a lot of
Yeah.
times they could scale, but they don't have production, or they don't have
Yeah.
cash, or they don't have, um, fill in the blank. And so there are just elements to all of that, that it's never one veined, I guess,
Yeah.
is the one thing to always remember
Yeah.
about any business. Is there's
Yeah.
always other, if this department is kicking butt, it usually means that these other departments are getting extra strain that they might not be ready or capable for.
Yeah.
And so it's always this balancing act
Yeah.
of keeping everything in the right places.
I find talking to companies, it's a lot of that 80/20 principle, like the 20% that I see online, I'm like, oh, they're amazing. And then when I talk to them in person or on the phone or whatever, they're like, well, we're struggling because we've got to do these things. And you don't see the behind the scenes. And so everybody thinks they're a massive, giant, multi-million dollar company, when in reality, it's, John in his garage or Julie in their garage, making product and stuff like that. And I was just talking to a bag maker, and he was telling me how he tried to make his company be a big brand and sound like a big brand, and then he ended up deciding that it was better for him to market it as himself, still keep the big brand name, but show more it's just him and that personal connection. And then all of a sudden he started to grow a lot more because people were personally connected to him and the brand, versus just, oh, it's just a big brand. And people are buying it because they're like, not that they feel sorry for you, but they're like, oh, this person is actually physically making this product. So I feel like I'm actually getting that from them, and I
Hmm.
connect with them. So that's
Yeah, in
that's
this
that's really, really
industry,
good. I like
there's
I like
a
everything
lot of
you've said
people
so
that
far.
connect with things like
I
that,
I
right? So
almost
it's
want to start a company sometimes based on what people say, and then I realize the hardship behind it.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally.
Um, so I guess going and just totally flipping the script here, going into products and manufacturing and stuff like that. What are some? I know you have some new products coming out this year and whatnot. When it comes to creating a new product, I know you have a designer and then you have a team out there. What are some things that, when someone has a business and they come out with a new product, what kind of things, like, I know for you in the outdoor industry, you have to do a lot of testing, but I'm sure there's only so much testing you can do before you get it into the real world. And then you might hear some things about it. But what is your kind of creative process for your team?
So for us, it always starts with, I guess I shouldn't say it always starts with. Somehow we've generated an idea. Sometimes those
Yeah.
ideas come from a need, like we see, like, oh, this is a need in either our line of products or something like that. Sometimes they come from us seeing a new material or a new insulation, and we're like, oh, this is an incredible upgrade. Let's start designing around this new thing. And so we kind of get those ideas formulated, and then we sit down
Mhm.
and we write essentially a design prompt. That design prompt is, okay, what are we trying to make? What are the non-negotiables? What are the things this thing has to do? Where does it have to succeed?
Mhm.
So that when we hit the end of the project, if these aren't getting met, then we've designed the wrong thing. And so we sit down and write that together with me and my designer. And then from there, we just start iterations. Now, depending on the project, sometimes we go in 5 different directions at once. And then sometimes we go in only 2 different directions. Just it really is product specific. But obviously, the more directions that we start with, the more time it's going to take. Any more for our products, we try to keep, I don't know, we usually have between 10 and 20, I would say, products under development or ideas that we're actively working on at a time, which is a tremendous amount. I have an incredible designer in Brigham, and we're actually looking to grow that design team this year. But so we'll keep like that many projects alive, which means that typically anytime we're backpacking or going outside, we have 5, 10 different prototypes that we're taking out, we're testing, we're putting through the
Yeah.
ringer. And that process can take anywhere from, at the fastest, maybe a year and a half up to 3 years sometimes, to go through iteration after iteration, tweaks, test out different ideas, and then finally bring it to market. And just like you said, though, um, we'll do everything we can to test every element of it we can, but
Yeah.
there's still that human element of getting it into thousands of people's hands and figuring out what they're going to do with it, different terrain, different ways that they choose to use it.
Yeah.
And so then you learn from that, and sometimes you come back and you still revise that product for version 2. But yeah, it takes years for us to do that, but really it all starts with that initial idea, writing that prompt of okay, what does this thing need to do to be successful? And then from there, starting out on all the different directions we need to start testing to figure
Yeah.
out the very best end product we can design.
Yeah. So I guess being transparent to people, is there any product since you've had them come out that you've gotten it back and you're like, oh crap, we didn't do enough research on it, or it was a small change that you had to make on a lot of products? Because I know sometimes a material might wear differently than you think, or or whatnot. I had there was a company that's no longer in business anymore, but they did alpaca shirts,
Mm.
and all the alpaca wear that I got from them were from hiking, and they're supposed to be taking it hiking. It all wore straight through the shoulders because there was just not enough, I guess, spandex or whatever material goes in mixed with it. And I don't think that's why they went out of business, but it's definitely I'm sure oh crap, it's wearing a lot faster than people thought. And I only went on maybe 10 hikes with it total. So
Mhm. Yeah, the one that comes to mind was, back from 2018 with the Kickstarter. We made, and I should say this is not my current designer that
yeah.
did this. This was a me thing. There was a slight, I wouldn't even say a change, but basically a variation from one fabric to the production run of fabric.
Hmm.
And the weave of the fabric was a little bit more open, and it caused some of that Loft-Tech insulation to start bleeding through the face fabric. So you'd see these little white strings slowly coming out.
Yeah.
It wasn't a significant amount, but it was not a professional, piece that you wanted. And so we ended up eating that. Basically, we took all of those and we said, if you still want these ones, we'll sell them to you at a massive discount. They're still
Mhm.
totally functional. They're just not the level that we expect of our
Yeah.
gear. And then we had to essentially go back to drawing board and coat the fabric, in order for it to hold, basically make it
Yeah.
downproof. Um, and so, yeah, that was like a tweak, like an on the fly one that just, it's hard to, I mean, it's been a while, so it's hard to remember all the details, but sometimes it is like out of your control. One
Yeah.
fabric run to the next fabric run can have variances. And that's why we work
Yeah.
with the highest end fabric manufacturers. Like that fabric was not made by anyone we use today, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah.
But because
Yeah.
even at the highest level, you can have variances. We just produced the Vantage Alpine jacket,
Hmm.
and we designed a brand new fabric for that jacket. When they produced the fabric and then it went through the testing process, they lost about 60%. Sorry, the other way around. Like 35 to 40% of that fabric was not fit for use, and they had to rerun and redo that fabric.
Oh wow.
And that's at the only fabric mill in the entire world that I know of that can produce this fabric. Even the same company in a different country at a different mill is not capable of producing the fabric the same.
Yeah.
So it's produced in Japan. It's an incredibly long process to make this fabric. It caused delays. Um, And so that's the kind of stuff. Sometimes it feels a little bit out of our control, but that's why we have
Yeah.
to do the QC. That's why we have to stick to it and just cross all our T's and dot all our I's. But
So is there at what point do you go, okay, we just need to now release this? Because I know you can continually tweak stuff, but I'm sure there's a point where you're like, okay, it, there, you're going to have to come out with it because it can't be 100% perfect, right?
mhm.
Like at what point would you tell people to, like, okay, there's a certain point in your product that you're just going to have to go for it?
Yeah. Um, over 11, 12 years of business, I think that gets easier and easier for us to answer, but I think it's harder for a startup, right? So if I
Yeah.
look back at the startup side, um, I don't know. I think you can just ask yourself that question of, does this meet the satisfaction level that you feel like is attainable right now?
Yeah.
I don't think there's been any brand that has not continued to improve a product.
Yeah.
The rocket ship brand of the last 5 years has probably been Durston, and he has tweaked his tent many, many times from
Yes.
version one, right? So I do think that there's an element of like you realizing that perfection is not a real thing, right?
Yeah.
Perfection doesn't exist. You're always going to find new ideas and ways to improve it. But I think the question is, does this offer enough value to be worth it? Is this going to get me repeat customers?
Yeah.
I think that's a really good place to start too. Is this good enough that people would trust me again and be willing to buy from me again? And then I think that sometimes people overlook at least a little bit the value equation of it. Like our first sleeping bags were nowhere near the value, or excuse me, the price point of what they are today.
Yeah.
But at that time, like I was selling a down sleeping bag for 99 bucks when we started. And the value proposition on that was just incredible. And it brought a lot of repeat customers, a lot of brand loyalty.
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the questions. You never want to release something that will harm your brand.
Yeah.
Um, and so if it's good enough for people to enjoy enough to repeat buy, I think that's a great way to answer that.
Yeah. That's a good answer. I like that. So what's I guess how would you say your relationship with the outdoors has changed since you've grown your business? Because were you always outdoorsy and then you just became more outdoorsy, or do you find like you're less outdoorsy now because you're just business, 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 or you're sick of it?
No, I think that that's part of what success looks like for me is still finding ways to constantly enjoy it and not just make it feel like work.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would say that all of my hobbies centered around being outside before I started Outdoor Vitals. That said, I was not some diehard backpacker before I started Outdoor Vitals. It was more of
Yeah.
my current interests and where I wanted to go versus my experience background. But I mean, I grew up riding dirt bikes, riding pedal bikes, hunting, skiing, snowboarding. Like, so many of my hobbies were outside, and also because of where I live. I live in Utah, and there's just so much access to
Yeah.
amazing things. So then I started Outdoor Vitals when I was getting into backpacking, and I was like,
Okay.
man, it's so hard to find a good sleeping bag. So I started kind of with that thing, especially for someone who was in college and couldn't afford a
Yeah.
high end sleeping bag because there were some that existed for
Yeah.
way more money than I could afford at that day and time. And so that was kind of the initial seed to kind of take that to where I am now. Um, yeah, I mean, I've spent the last 12 years doing an excessive amount of backpacking and spending a lot of time out there, but I feel like I've just continued to try to work my way and find a way to not make it always feel like work and make it enjoyable. One of the things that I've done in the last 2 years, I would say, is I quit taking the camera out there to film YouTube videos. Like I
Yeah.
filmed YouTube videos for basically the first 10 years of the business really consistently. And I found that that was really I kinda left the camera home a few times and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, this is so enjoyable yet
Yeah.
again." And so there's things like that that I've had to, like, learn when, to do things, when not to do things, find ways to enjoy things, and still check out to have my own experiences and then ways that basically bring our customers along because
Yeah.
we do value a lot of, creating content to help people get into the outdoors and um, overcome the information side, not just the gear side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also want to uncheck and like get the full benefit of what the outdoors
Yeah.
offers. But yeah, I mean, 12 years now of backpacking more than the average Joe, I guess you would say, because it is like considered work for me, and I do have
Yeah.
products to test and things to do, and so that's built a lot of experience and yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know that just hiking with you on the Colorado Trail for those few days before I hurt myself, I, you know, you guys obviously had a passion for it and were going, going, going and knew what you were doing. And I didn't have, at least for me, when I'm going on the trip, I'm sure it was the same way. I'm like, okay, I know that what their level is, I think, based on what I see online and talking, but then I don't actually know your level of hiking until I get there and vice versa. And I'm like, oh, we're all on the same page. We all love the outdoors. We're not like complaining. No one was out there complaining like, oh, I got to be outside again to test the product. It was like, sweet, we're outside. We get to do this trail. Dumb stuff happens. I can't wait. So I was like, okay, the passion is still there, running
Totally.
strong. So that's
Totally.
cool.
I mean, we do like he joined us for that 100-mile hike, and we do what's called a 100-mile challenge every year. In fact, I was just rewriting the content for the next
Oh, cool.
framework, and so it's really top of mind. But no, I truly and genuinely love it, and I love helping other people get out there and experience it because to me, it's everything that the world really needs is that time to disconnect
Yeah.
from technology and noise and stress. And I think the outdoors is the number one best place that you can do it.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I do really, really enjoy it. Sometimes life gets really busy and it's tough to get out there, but every single time I get out there, like I come back just with a big smile on my face
Yeah.
from being able to spend time out there.
Yeah. That's cool. Oh man, I had something really good I was going to say and I totally forgot. I usually write notes down so I can look at like a word or something like that, but I totally forgot. But oh, this is what I was going to ask is kind of going back into the passion part of it. How do you keep your customers continually connected to your brand? You know, because sometimes people will have a brand or something like that and they just sell a one off. But how do you keep, for someone who has a business that's, got multiple items or SKUs, how do you keep them coming back? I know me personally, I love the design of most people on here. I love their products and that's why I have them on. But, you know, how do you keep them connected? Or how would you tell someone to help keep them connected to their brand?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to do it. Um, obviously content is a great way, providing value in content, emails, videos, podcasts, always a great way to keep people engaged. Um, but I would say you just keep serving them, right? So
Yeah.
we continue serving our customer. Um, and that's how we've grown and get people to stick around. And what I mean by that is I think from initially when I started the company, I thought I needed a lot of sleeping bags. I needed like a
Yeah.
bunch of varieties of sleeping bags and to be known as the sleeping bag guy and company. And what I found is that that was kind of a backwards way of thinking for a day and age of businesses with the internet. Instead, the pivot point there is no, once you bring a customer in, you want to continue to solve all of their problems with
Yeah.
other products. And so starting with sleeping bags, and then we just continue to branch out to backpacks, tents, and then we got into apparel, and we just continued to try to solve people's problems. And then we even, got to the point where we released our Live Ultralight membership and help people both save for the outdoors, but also to bring in other proven gear and other proven essentials that we don't manufacture and lower the
Yeah.
price points for our members. So that's kind of the hidden benefit. I wouldn't say hidden, but a lot of people don't realize that like if you're buying backpacking food inside the Live Ultralight membership is the cheapest place you can buy it because we can do
Yeah.
lower than list price and we can give rebates back and things like that because it's a gated price, not a public price. So
Yeah.
we just continue to do everything we can to solve problems, I would say.
And I like things like the 100-mile challenge that you guys do. I did that twice, and then I'm sure I'll do it this year as well. It keeps people connected to the brand and as a family, and everybody's talking on Facebook groups and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's great. It's not like you just have a product and then you have little tendrils out everywhere to kind of keep people connected instead of just one string that could get cut and next thing you know, they're gone. So,
Mhm.
uh, that's great.
Yeah, it's always
Um,
it's always tough as a business to know what is worth doing and what's worth keeping and what's like noise, because I think it's more important what you say no to than what you say yes to. You have a million ideas come to you all the time, and people bring you a million ideas all the time. But the
Yeah.
reality is you're saying no to 9 out of 10 of them. And then when you find one that works, then you want to, stick with it. And that was
Yeah.
the 100 mile challenge. We did a beta group on that 5 years ago, and it's one that stuck. You
Yeah.
fire bullets per se, and then when you hit the target, then you start firing the cannonballs, because you only have so much gunpowder and lead to
Yeah.
play this game. And so I do think that's a really important aspect. But yeah, the 100 mile challenge has been one of the most rewarding things we've ever done. um, we get hundreds and hundreds. This year should be the first year that we break 1,000 people doing that DIY challenge with us, which is
Wow.
so cool, because we just get story after story after story of how it's affected people, how it's benefited people,
Yeah.
relationships that get rekindled, physical changes, people losing weight or getting stronger, overcoming
Yeah.
injuries, people doing bucket list dream hikes that they've wanted to do for 20 years, people that haven't, I mean, we have people that haven't backpacked for 20 years and the challenge is what got them back out on trail.
Yeah.
And so it's just super rewarding. But yeah, it's just another way that we try to serve our customer, engage, and keep the narrative alive.
That's cool. I love it that people are coming back to the outdoors. I don't know. Next time I go hiking with you, if I see you guys take your shoes off and start doing grounding with your toes in the grass, I might turn around on the trail and go the other way.
I haven't got into like that element just yet, but I do love the outdoors, and I'm more of a meditate in the outdoors kind of guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
than
Sit and listen to the birds.
yep, just try to like clear the mind, be super super present, and just like experience it as
Yeah.
fully as I can. So,
Yeah.
and
That's
sometimes
cool.
I find too that like physical challenges are a great way too. So like there's the element of like you can sit in nature and do nothing and
Yeah.
absorb a lot, and it can be really valuable. The other side of it is to really challenge yourself in nature. And you know, it's been a little bit more popular lately, this concept of what people call a Masogi challenge.
Mhm.
And really what that is doing something physically hard in the outdoors that is so hard that you have like a 50% chance of
Yeah.
success or failure. Um, but there's something to that really resets like the perspective on life and what is hard and what is not hard and what is important and what's not important. And
Yeah.
it's incredibly valuable. And I find value in all of it. There's something humbling, I would say, about nature. And like I always say, like Mother Nature has her say. Like you can go out on a
Yeah.
beautiful day and 2 seconds later it can be a blizzard. And that's not something you got to choose, but it's something you get to react to. And I think
Yeah.
that's another really important part about the edifying process of nature is you don't get to say how easy the trail is. You don't get to say how steep it is, how steep, how good the weather is, how bad the weather
Yeah.
is. You just have to roll with those punches. Um, and there's something there that I think helps also with just that perspective on life and that recentering process.
Yeah. No, it's really good. So I guess going into that then, what if your business was a trail, what kind of trail would it be and what mile do you think your business is on?
Oh man, that is if my business was a trail. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess to me, I would tie it to something like we'll just say like the Uinta Highline Trail.
Yeah.
If you start on the east side, or sorry, excuse me, the west side of that trail, you start high, you start in the mountains. Things roll pretty good. The first passes aren't too bad. Um, and I think with that, that's kind of how Outdoor Vital started. We
Yeah.
we did have some rocket ship growth in the first couple of years. Things went really quickly in the grand scheme of things, really smoothly. And then we started to pivot, and on that trail, you start to cross back and forth over the center line, and you start to do harder and harder passes right there in the middle, and you're at really high altitude and really exposed. The trail at times is super narrow, going through like Dead Man's Pass and some of those things. And I think that's been, where from year 3 to year, I don't know, 8 to 10 was. And then now I feel like we're kind of to that point where we've broken over what I consider like Anderson Pass, which is like,
Yeah.
I think the high point of the trail or near it. And we still have passes to climb. like for a lot of miles for like,
Yeah, yeah,
we're not even halfway here, but they become a little bit more far and few between, the passes, and we've just got more momentum. You're on trail longer, you're dialed in, you're moving, you've got your legs underneath you at this point,
yeah,
and um, like I say, there's still some passes to climb, but they're just a little bit more far and few between, and
yeah.
you've got that momentum with you. So that's probably how I would describe where Outdoor Vitals is.
That's cool. I always love how people describe their business on the trail, because some people are like, I haven't even gotten off the trailhead yet, I haven't even gotten on the trail. I'm still sitting in the car putting my boots on. So that's great. Well, I appreciate all the insight for everything, and I'm sure people have learned a ton. I always learn so much about running a business, or just the businesses that I love, because I love just hearing how products are made and how businesses are run. And if I could do a TV show, I would love to. That What's that show called? How It's Made. I always love that
Mm,
TV show, How It's Made, and I'm watching how products are made.
totally.
So I'm gonna go into, it's just our quick little rapid fire round. It's like 10 little questions that are just like one word answers, or just one little phrase answers, just for people to get to know a little bit more about you and stuff like that. And so let's go ahead and go into our rapid fire round. So first thing is, my favorite part to ask is your favorite national park.
Oof. Favorite national park. I mean, the first one that pops in my mind is Zion. It's my backyard.
Yeah.
But more so the backcountry of Zion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
love
love
the
that
Grand
place.
Canyon too, though. Man, and that's kind of my backyard too. So both of them. I love the wilderness sections. I love doing rim to rim to rim.
Yeah.
Um, Either one of those is fantastic.
Yeah. Actually, when I was telling my wife about the trip I wanted to go on, the TMB around Mont Blanc, the 100 miles
Mhm,
for a hike,
mhm.
she goes, "That's so much," and I was like, "Well, we could do it in a certain amount of days." And she goes, "That's too many miles," and I was like, "No, we did rim to rim, and that's like how many miles in one day?" I was like, "Just do that a few times," and she was like, "That's too much." I'm like, "It's not too much, especially after doing Colorado. That's not too
Yeah,
much." So
it's all about the pacing, right?
yes. All right. Last thing you Googled related to your business.
Last thing I Googled related to my business? Um, I don't know. I've no idea. Do you mean like
Okay.
related to like searching my business?
Maybe searching your business or something in the industry, or you were like, man, how much is this going to cost me? That kind of thing.
Hmm. Um, yeah, sometimes I just will open a window and search for something to see how we rank up. So sometimes I would say probably searching our Nova Pro jacket just to see where it's ranking in terms
Yeah.
of people being able to find it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Next question is, what's your favorite trail snack?
Favorite trail snack is probably dried mangoes.
Try mangoes.
Like the Costco ones that have like a little bit of sugar sprinkled on them too. They're just
Okay.
so good. They're sticky, but they're so good.
Yes. Okay. And then what's your worst trail snack you've ever tried?
Um, I won't name the company, but I tried like a new like drink mix, like a health drink mix on the
Yeah.
trail, and I literally thought I was drinking dirt, and I could not drink it. Tried to give it to my dog, and my dog wouldn't even drink it, and I was like, "Yeah, this is bad. This is real bad." So, but I won't
Brutal.
name the company. So I'm not a big drink mix, like a healthy drink, like a protein
Yeah.
drink mix or a meal
Yeah.
replacement. I don't like to do those on trails.
Yeah. I love, someone got me into the Nerds gummies, the Nerds clusters.
Mm,
Those are
yes,
like,
so good.
those seem to be like the snack of 2025, 2026 for people on trail or running and stuff like that. So I had that on my ultra, like come into the aid station every lap, and my wife's there, and I'm like, just give me gummy nerd clusters. I'm a sugary guy, and I'm just give me gummies. And she's like, you need carbs. I'm like, like just regular carbs. I'm like, no, just give me sugar. I just need sugar.
Yeah, so true in those
Um,
ultras.
all right, tent, hammock, or cowboy camping?
Tent.
Tent.
Yeah, tent. I ever since, some of these trekking pole tents came along that are sub 2 pounds, it's just
Yeah.
for me, it's just a no-brainer. I get out of the wind more than a hammock. I don't have to look for trees, so it's a little bit easier in the desert where, out here. And then I like being fully sealed in. The last time I cowboy camped, we had spiders everywhere in our campsite.
Oh,
And I was like, I'm never doing this again.
what?
Like, there's spiders everywhere. Guys are waking up with tarantulas under their sleeping pads. And I'm like, I'm done. Or
Yeah, no,
scorpions under
thank
their
you.
sleeping pads. I was done.
All right. So what's one outdoor skill you still kind of suck at?
Ooh, outdoor skill I kind of suck at. Um, that is a good one. Um, I would say I'm not like heavily proficient in like bushcrafting stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you drop me off in the woods, do I think I could survive? Yes, but it's probably because I'm physically getting myself out, not necessarily
Yeah.
sheltering in place as much. I've been out there enough that I've got
Yeah.
good ideas and stuff, but I don't like study that. And so I probably could continue to study that. I took some first aid courses this last year, and I could definitely continue to take more of those and continue to refresh on those as well.
Yeah. So I wonder how much you learned on that first aid course, because I had to wrap my own ankle on the trail. So
Well, I just thought you were faking. So I was like, I think I'll just let him do his thing. I think he's just faking this. Just kidding.
when I send my pictures of my swollen ankles, she was like, "Okay, you really are injured," and I was like, "Okay, yes, I really am." Um, what's the most used piece of gear in your life right now?
Uh, Jackets, for sure. So actually our brand new jacket, the Zulu jacket that'll be releasing in a couple of weeks. Um, that's definitely the piece I'm using the most. It's winter. I'm using it in and out of the office all the time. I'm using it just, yeah, pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
That or our
Yeah.
Pursuit hoodie. That one also is like a mid-layer piece that we released last fall. And in the wintertime, you can wear it sun up to sundown, it feels like. Like when I was skiing last week with my kids,
Yeah.
that was actually the only insulation I wore all day because it was just a beautiful day out.
Oh, sweet. All right. And second to last question, favorite way to unplug, or do you ever unplug?
Yes, I definitely try to unplug. This is kind of an interesting one, but like we talked about earlier with me trying to stay centered in the outdoors, not getting too caught up in like it being, quote unquote work,
Yeah.
is me and my brother will do a 7-day backcountry backpack hunt every year in
Oh,
Colorado.
cool. Yeah.
And so I don't take cameras, I obviously we don't make hunting content
Yeah.
or anything like that. And so it's just 7 days out of a backpack. I'm not really doing a lot of miles. I'm usually sitting in place, um, you know, with binoculars, just glassing
Yeah.
for sometimes sun up to sundown without not really moving. And so it's a really like still wilderness experience. We're going deep in the wilderness, so I'm rarely seeing people at all. And it's definitely a really great reset on the year every year.
Yeah. That's cool. All right. And last question, what's one word that your team would use to best describe you?
Um, oh man, one word best describes me. Um, I don't know. That I would probably say like a thinker. Um, I like to sit and think through problems a lot.
Thinker.
Hmm. And so I think sometimes they want me to be more decisive and more like just like quick to make a decision sometimes, but I like to listen to all sides. I like to hear all of their inputs, like from my director's team. And sometimes I like the feedback I get is like, hey, you should just make this decision. We don't need to like have everyone's input all the time.
Yeah.
But I really like to think through as many sides and perspectives as I can before I make a decision. Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I really do. I like to learn. I like to study, and I like to think through problems. So try to be strategic about it for sure.
Awesome. Well, Tayson, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And if anybody's looking for Outdoor Vitals, how can we find you? What your website, your socials, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, search anything related to Outer Vitals, you're going to find us. Find us on our website. We do make video content. We have slowed down on that, but our most consistent content right now is our podcast. So you can find that on YouTube or through a podcasting app. And a lot of that, I would say, pretty valuable right now. Just a lot of those episodes are either related specifically to trips or related specifically to me and our designer getting on and answering listener questions from the perspective of the people that have built the gear, built the business. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to connect with us, that's a great way to do so.
Perfect. And then if people want to sign up for the 100-mile challenge, is there like a hard stop on when you can sign up for that?
There will be, but you have an open window right now. The challenge technically kicks off like April 1st. So I would highly advise you guys get signed up before April 1st. That challenge also, like we've talked about doing it as 100 miles, we do offer that you can do that stacked over multiple trips. If that suits you a little bit better, but yeah, incredible program. There's a great community that's already kicking off posts and, rallying everyone up and getting excited. We do a framework that goes along with that really is, I don't know, maybe 50 pages of a booklet that really go through everything. We do accompanying videos to help people fully dial in and be ready to go do 100 miles. And then we do lots of things with it. We don't make money on this
Yeah.
program. We lose money on this program because you get a free altitude hoodie when you sign up. You get a free t-shirt when you sign up. And if you finish it, you get free finishers prizes.
Sweet.
And it costs $60. And so we usually lose
Yeah.
money on this program. But it's incredible, and you can be backpacking with 1,000 people out there, but on your own trail, on your own dream hike, and still have that camaraderie and a level of expertise as if, you could take someone as talented as Craig out on trail with you. So
Awesome. Well, Tayson, thank you so much. And everybody, thanks again for listening to Beyond the Trailhead, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Tayson.
yeah. Thank you.